Hey, welcome to episode 13 of the Groundfloor Market Trends podcast, where we dive into the latest real estate market insights, trends, and innovations shaping the way we invest. I'm your host, Patrick Donoghue, and today we are joined by Claire Lovell, Groundfloor's head of product. Claire has played a key role in driving innovation at Groundfloor, including leading the development and release of the Flywheel Portfolio, our REIT offering that's changing the way retail investors participate in real estate. Claire has over a decade of experience in product management with leadership roles at prominent companies, including Lev, where she built AI-powered platforms to optimize commercial real estate transactions, and Gemini, where she spearheaded retail product strategy and contributed to blockchain and Web3 innovations. Earlier in her career, she led product development at BRD, launching a successful B2B business line and expanding cryptocurrency access across Europe and the US. Claire, you have been busy, and welcome. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So you joined Groundfloor as head of product last year, the first person to take that role, actually. And you had a vast background clearly in product with fintech, good match. Tell the audience, like in your own words, about yourself and some of the interesting aspects of your roles that we just talked about.
Yeah, well, product management is such a funny profession because for someone who's my age, a little bit more long tenured in the profession, there is not really a path to be a product manager. So I really got into it just from pure interest in problem solving. I had this role in my teens and 20s working in box office management for theaters. After the global financial crisis, I got laid off. And so I'm looking for my next role. And I found this opportunity to move out to San Francisco. I'm in New York at the time for a ticketing software startup. And I knew that customer so well because I had been that customer. I'd been doing
Mhm.
that job for 10 years at that point. So I was super excited. I go out there, and product management isn't really a thing. This is 2010. And I just start working with the customers, understanding them. What are your problems? What are your pain points? And I was able to take that to the engineers and work with them to make our products better because we were taking that customer feedback directly and making the product more appropriate for their needs. So that was it's just so fun. It's I say it's like addicting basically to solve problems for your customers. You feel like you have a great impact and you're doing something that's legitimately helping them. That was B2B software, so I'm making their jobs literally easier. So the software sells itself. You're like, "Hey, do you want to press a button and make your job easier? Who doesn't want that, right?" So that's really how I got my start in product management. And like I said, the profession was so different at that time. The only product managers that there weren't very many of them, and those that there were really not respected. You engineers had most of the glory at that time. And so at that company that I'm talking about, which no longer exists, the first person we put in a product management role was someone who was not a super competent engineer at the time. And
Mhm.
so they thought, this isn't really your calling. Engineering isn't for you, but you do have that technical background, so we're going to make you a product manager. And that was the thought is you're not able to code, so I guess there's this other secondary thing. And it wasn't really seen as creating the value that we see today. And so I have been lucky enough for to rise up along with the profession where the profession has so much more discipline around it now and so much more interest. We have a process now for building products. This is not, you're not creating these rule books from scratch by yourself. There's so many
Right.
amazing companies to look up to and draw inspiration from. And so now we're at a point where product management, I think, is very respected and I think is adding value. And compared to 2010, right, I don't encounter engineers anymore who have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder about product management. They're thankful for product management. They want the help
Yeah.
because they don't want to be gathering the requirements. They want us to help them do that stuff.
Taking insights, making business case use cases for them, and translating that to the engineers. Is that taking, obviously I'm not a product manager, is that a good way to keep a broad understanding of the pathway from ideation through execution? I
Yeah,
know the execution is beyond the engineers too, but like, is that generally the pathway?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really at its heart, it's about solving problems for your customers, right? And you're the one who's facilitating that. You're deeply understanding that, right? Getting those requirements down and then making sure that we're executing on it. And then once it's actually delivered, you iterate on it to make sure that it's actually providing the value that people want. It's very rare that you deliver some product and people love it day one and you don't need to make any changes.
Yeah, that
Not
might be.
usually.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a real life example, something that was a major shift for Groundfloor, and that's the Flywheel portfolio. And it was amazing work, right? It was a conceptual shift, right? It was an enhancement for the customer experience for sure. So walk me through that. Walk me through the ideation, how it's different, and then the release. And let's go from there.
Yeah, so I joined, right after we had been working on it a bit. We knew this is where we wanted to go, but we didn't really know how to get there. And my style of product management is really influenced by, and I think most people nowadays this is the way, but influenced by things like the lean startup, where you want to get to the customer value as quickly as possible. We do not have perfect information. We are not going to know everything. And so let's get the product out there and get the feedback from customers. So, really, one of the first things we did was work on building it out and getting it to a smaller group of customers so we can immediately see what are their questions, what are their concerns, right? How can we improve it? But before we even got to that stage, right, we wanted to think about what are the problems we're solving for customers, like I keep talking about, right? And so
Mhm.
something that's really great about Flywheel, I think, compared to some of our previous products, like the auto investor account, is that because we have so many loans in this product, you put in some money, your money is automatically diversified over 100, 200 loans. And because of that, you are going to get repayments more frequently and you're going to get repaid faster, which just lets you compound your earnings, right? So instead of getting 10% over a year or 2 years, right? You might get that money back and then be able to go ahead and reinvest it again. So your $50 turns into $51, which turns into $53, and you can grow from there. And so I think that's a major benefit. And then ideally, you don't have to put in $1,000 or $10,000, right? Like a lot of other products out there. You could put in $100 and start to grow your net worth with us. And so no matter where you are in your investing journey, Flywheel is available for investors of all sizes because you get that same diversification, that same full broad diversification at the $100 level, just like you would at $100,000
It's so
level.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. Go ahead. Sorry. It's my fit.
no,
It's
it's great.
the diversification is such a key, right, to what how ground floor inspired, this investing, and the flywheel just encapsulates it so well, right? And it really it you're able to, with a click of a button, right, like instantly diversify across the range of assets, which is such a good way to manage your risk, but also to benefit from the cash flow and the liquidity benefit of the nature of the product as well. Super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, that's what people want is that time to cash to be reduced so that they can go ahead and keep investing, right? Which ultimately is going to give you greater returns because you can't time the market, right? Anyone who's interested in real estate knows you can't time the market, but you can control your time in the market. And
Mhm.
so we can help you with that because, again, you know what your return is going to be. We have 10 years of historical returns to back it up. We're giving you a portfolio so you're not over concentrated in one investment. You're going to see that performance over time where you can really expect that you're going to get these frequent cash disbursements that you can just go ahead and reinvest. So I think it's a great product for the really for all investors, whether you're new to investing or not. It just makes it so easy. You don't have to think about it. I joke because I think there's a sort of a scale as you learn to invest. You start and you don't know very much, and so you're a little bit afraid to get into certain products.
Mhm.
Then you start to learn more, and you think, "Oh, I really know what I'm doing. I've got some good knowledge. I'm going to really micromanage what I'm doing." And then you go on the other side as you gain the most knowledge, and you say, "Actually, I don't know what I'm doing." Start back
Mhm.
to letting professional money managers help me manage this and aggregate, make sure I allocate according to my risk preferences, right? As opposed to me necessarily picking and choosing every little investment, right? So I don't, for example, I don't stock pick, I ETF. And Flywheel is really that exact concept, just in real estate. So it's passive, it's very easy to use, but then you're making sure you get those great returns without making all the mistakes that I know retail investors make and I've made myself.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, in our ground floor pool of investors, you said it well. You have the first time investor, maybe who has $100, and then you have very sophisticated accredited investors, right? And, the product does work for both of those examples, right? So, and then there's perhaps more products down the line for differentiating, maybe, who knows? But talk to me about, you mentioned a beta test about the customers that you went out and tested with, and then, the larger release. Tell me about, if you could stratify sort of the, maybe feedback or how you look at, the sort of wide range pool of investors that Ground Floor serves.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely have different personas, and I think there are different products that appeal to different investors, and it's not necessarily based on level of sophistication, because I think most of our investors are relatively sophisticated. I think most of our investors are probably not brand new to investing completely. They may be brand new to investing at ground floor. We obviously welcome any skill level, and we want to make it as easy to use for any skill level. But I think knowing that, right, there are people who want to look at their investments. And so for people who prefer picking and choosing individual loans to invest in, they want to look at the data, understand, get those investor updates that we send out on individual loans. They don't necessarily prefer this product in comparison to that. But I think this is a great part of your portfolio, right? It's just a
Mhm.
very different product. It's the same returns that you're going to get with picking and choosing those loans, but you don't have to do the picking and choosing. We're helping you by giving you a nice, strong portfolio that's really designed to give you a nice, solid, strong, consistent return. So I think when we went out to our initial users, right, there was some users who thought, but what about LROs? Does this mean we don't have LROs anymore? No, it doesn't. We still have LROs, right? This is just really a different product and it's meeting a different need. And so it's not meant to compete with those other great products we have. It's additive to them. So I think that was the first question. And then I think
Mhm.
people wanted to understand more about the specifics of the investments. And so when we first launched the product, in order to get to market as quickly as possible, we didn't necessarily have all the right reporting and detail for people that they wanted. So that was one of the first things we started working on, is giving people that deeper look into how Flywheel
Mhm.
is constructed and what the performance is likely to be, what loans are in there, where are the loans, things like that. So we have worked hard to titrate that reporting to answer all those questions people have in a easy to use way. So it's not too detailed, but it's detailed enough that you can get what you want and make the best
Mhm.
investment decisions for you. And then I think just continuing to make it easy to use, offering things like the ability to reinvest on your investor account. You can reinvest just interest, just principal, both principal and interest, right? So these little tweaks that make it easier. One of the things that has come up in feedback as well is the fee can be confusing. So we have um, redone how we calculate that as well to just make it a lot more easy to understand. So continuing to really simplify the experience. So it's not something you have to sit and read 40-page document to understand, but
Yeah, you don't
you
want that.
can allocate those. It really should be set and forget it, because that's really what this product is designed for, unlike some of our other products that are really meant to be something that you explicitly choose, monitor,
Yeah.
and adjust over time.
So one of the things, this is the Market Trends podcast, right? So I would be remiss not to talk about one. One of the things, being a geek myself, I really, one of the things that I think is an advantage, the way I look at the world, is having geodiversity, meaning you can get a wide range of assets in different parts, different geos, right? So I would think regionally, right? Housing, you have the Southeast, you have the Northeast, you have the Midwest and the West, right? And there's recently, one of the interesting things that's been happening over the last 2, 3 years is that, each home price increases and appreciation have been different in those regions, and it's
Right.
very stark, right? And it's shifting, right? And in post 21, 22, when interest rates started really accelerating, you had some bloodshed in the West, right? And the South was like, the best, and everyone was coming here, and you had really severe, like really good appreciation. And then slowly, right, the Northeast has taken over that role of leader in house price appreciation. And I think we're gradually doing more and more in these different regions. Like we're pretty heavy in the Southeast right now, but that is a real advantage in this flywheel concept, where you can get broad diversification across geo. Speaking from just somebody that watches these trends, you really do have, you can, and like market timing, you can't really pick in the next 14 months where that's going to be. You can make educated guesses, and we do, and we look at different markets in different ways, but really the best way is to have exposure across these regions, because you know unlike other times, 5-year periods, 3-year periods since 2000, it's really, really becoming interesting and like notable, right? So we haven't talked about that concept conceptually. I'm surprising you with that, but that's something that I, as an investor, as a ground floor stakeholder, right, find really interesting, and something that we can certainly develop further, right? So like when I think about iteration, right, what are some iterations that you talked about, the way price is represented, you talked about what your team did for reporting. So talk about iteration and the importance of that feedback loop with the development of this product set and others that you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, well, first, and just yeah, it's so interesting, so fascinating what you're saying, because I think the reality of the where we are now in 2025 is that historic norms are not predictions of the future at this point, and so
Right.
everyone is feeling confused. And I know that very well because having worked the last couple of years before I came here in a commercial real estate debt brokerage, places that you don't expect to have trouble, or places that were doing really well before are no longer doing really well. And it's
Oh,
a very
interesting.
confusing time.
It is very
um,
mobile. Yeah.
yeah, right. Like, so San Francisco office space is struggling so much. And San Francisco as a whole now is struggling in the residential market because of the office market bottoming out. There's not the traffic, right? And there's more quality of life issues happening in San Francisco, let's say. New York,
Hmm.
which had many similar issues during COVID, saw such a revitalization because our employers here tend
Yes.
to be more conservative, tend to be banks, that what's driving the hub of activity here are those people who are not tech employers but more demanding, hey, we're going to return to the office 3 4 5 days a week. Very, very common requirement here in the New York City
Mhm.
region. So I think no one can predict what will happen. And to your point, right, the best thing is that broad diversification. And so, just myself as an investor, what I think about and I think would be really compelling is to give people the opportunity to pick their theses that they feel deeply, right, and commit their investments based on that. Because I think
Yeah.
for those investors who are more deeply educated and interested in these topics, they really want to control that because that they have some conviction about something. So I would love to get to a point where we can offer regional flywheels, for example, or other types of flywheels where we're giving people those assets based on their different investment theses, and they can to some extent pick those for themselves. I think that would be really strong. And I think we hear things like that from our customers. But when I think about collaborating with the team, with not only with our customers, but then also with the team, one of the things I try to distill down from the feedback is always, what is the person really saying? A lot of
Hmm.
times in product management, you get feedback from people and they say, build ABC. They don't necessarily want you to build ABC, and their interpretation of ABC might be different than your interpretation. So you really want to understand, what is the pain point that is driving that feedback? Where's that suggestion or feedback coming from? And that's really the core of the role of the product manager, is to ascertain that between they're going to get feedback from customers, leadership, engineering, design, right? They all have their different areas of focus. The product manager has to be a generalist. They have to take all of those disparate points of feedback, which may be very different, right? The customer might be asking for something that is totally the opposite of, let's say, what engineering feels that they can deliver. How do you marry those two together? That's the fun part actually of product management, is finding that solution that is going to
Mhm.
work for both parties and help. The customer is going to be happy, the business is going to keep growing, and we're going to keep moving things forward. And so anytime I'm getting feedback from a customer, I am not always taking it at face value or literally. I am trying to understand the context of that comment, and as well how many people feel that way, right? And what is the profile of this person who feels that way? Because that is
Mhm.
something I mentioned before. We have a few different user types.
Yep.
And so someone who would qualify themselves as a power user, which many of our employees here are power users,
Mhm.
they have a very different set of concerns than you would have from a more casual user, a newer user, someone who joined a month ago, didn't dive deep on your reporting. That's not exciting to them. For that person who joined a month ago, they might be just more interested in understanding how they're performing over time, because they only have
Mhm.
a month of returns, right? So they're not going to
Right.
have something crazy happen in a month, most likely. So
Mhm.
they're wanting to see what's the growth potential? How can I make this easy to use? How can I use this more, right? So you have to, as that product person, be collaborating with your customers, not only from what they say, but looking at the data of how they use the product, how much they use it, to ascertain where are the right areas to invest in or reinvest in.
Yeah, and while you were talking, I was, reflecting on the, the structure of the REIT and the uniqueness within the regulatory framework that we are fortunate enough to operate in. Like the uniqueness of ground floor is something that was attractive to me 10 years ago or 9 years ago when I joined. How long has it been? It's been a long time. And so it continues to be unique, right? And the what you've done with the fly, you and team have done with the flywheel is, I feel like it's such an inflection point in our journey as as unique providers of investment opportunities for the massive real estate investors, big or small, right? And it's super cool to listen to you talk about how the sausage is made, for lack of a better word, and the flawless experience that a user has in investing in this, right? It's really amazing, the thought and time and energy that goes into the ideation, the regulatory format, right? It's translating to engineers, having engineers. It's very fascinating. And I was part of the meeting when we named it. I thought that was an interesting meeting. God bless you for putting up with that meeting, but it was, and I think we got it right. Like I think you guys got it right. I think it's a perfect name, right? And as we move forward here, I'm pretty sure that there's other flywheels, right? And one has recently been released. Could you talk about maybe what is the next part of flywheel and give us some insight as to how that might be different or better?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're going to continue to improve the experience of the flywheel reporting and making it easier to use, things like that. But I think ultimately it's really that direction of putting more and different kinds of assets in these portfolio products that we have for
Hmm.
customers, and
Hmm.
letting them self-segment based on their investment profile, right? Not everyone wants to do the highest risking things, highest yielding things. Some people prefer lower risk, lower yield, right? So we want to have enough products available that wherever you are in your preferences, we have the ability to meet them. And I think that evolution means that we can move beyond just loans in Flywheel, but we can incorporate some of those other products we already have on the platform. Why can't we have a portfolio of second liens, for example? Or why can't we have a portfolio of cash advances for those accredited investors who love those? Because there's great demand for those products and
Hmm.
people really like them, and the returns have been very strong.
Mhm.
But it also doesn't need to be so black and white and so binary. I think there can be a portfolio of a bunch of those different products, and many investors would like those because the returns are going to be stronger than potentially when just investing in loans. And we can structure things in that way as fund managers for our customers as we keep creating new portfolios, different products that are going to give them those opportunities. So I think that's really exciting to me because I think it helps me, just for me personally as an investor. I don't feel like I need to go to 10 different platforms to get all of these different opportunities, right? We're going to have so many opportunities right here at Ground Floor. And then we also have our track record of the last 10 years, and we have so much momentum. I think that really speaks to the reason why I joined Ground Floor in the first place is
Mhm.
I thought we were such high potential, having come from the crypto space, right? Where
Mhm.
you sometimes are trying to get these products, you're trying to make things happen that people are not that interested in, right? Crypto is still not achieved mainstream adoption. You can be pro or anti crypto, right? But that's
Mhm.
the reality of it. And so
Mhm.
as a product person, you're there's the initial hump before they even interact with your product is I don't understand why I would
What
even
is
think about investing in
yeah.
this, right?
Mhm.
What is
Mhm.
this? I don't
What is
agree with
this?
this. I don't believe in
Mhm.
this, right?
I don't
Whereas
understand it. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But everyone understands real estate, first of all. Most people either own a home or aspire to own a home, right?
Mhm.
So I think from that perspective, it's a very simple to understand investment. And it's tangible, it's a real investment. We have houses that are backing these loans that we're giving out. And so you have downside protection, first of all, but this is a tangible, easy to understand thing that we can offer you an opportunity to, and you can mix and match it. And that's what's so exciting about Ground Floor is having been the first mover to this space. We have this extensive history on our customers, borrowers, and then we can go and use that to create products that they want to see and are excited about. And I think that's just really inspiring because our customers really love to see the new products we have, especially our longer term customers who that is what keeps them coming back to the platform. That is what is driving their excitement and interest. And
I
I think
love
we're
our
just
yeah.
barely at the surface of where we could be going.
I love our early adopters, right? And keeping new things coming, is a good way to make sure that the early adopters have new things to adopt, right? And it's it's super cool. One of the things that I picked out from what you're saying is we've talked about the flywheel. We've talked about the product. You mentioned ground floor and why you chose to come here. And you know me, it's for me, it's about the people, and you're one of those people. And but what's interesting is how amazing I think your team is, right? The people that help you on this product journey that you're on, and the people that you work with on the customer service side and the engineering side. But talk about your team, your product team, and what what's special about you guys. I know it, but tell the listeners what's special about them, because I think, for instance, I would point out the reporting itself has really come an amazingly long way. And things like that, I think, should be mentioned and brought out in formats like this because a lot of hard work goes into what you guys do. And so talk a little bit about your group.
Well, first of all, thank you. But
Oh, you're welcome.
yeah, I mean, we have people who are so amazingly obsessed with the customer experience. And they love to see customers succeed, right? They literally live in intercom just looking at the emails that customers are sending us, right? So it's
Mhm.
not coming when you write to our support team. Of course, support will respond and they're helping you, but we're reading all of those too, and we hear your feedback loud and clear. Whether it's you wrote to the support team, you left us a review, or we just see in the data you're not using the product, or you are, we look at all of those things to make our decisions. And so the product managers obsess over those things. And so when they come to me with new ideas, they're so informed by that customer feedback, so deeply informed. And so I have a new product I want to talk about in a second, but
Sure.
the person working on that product, right, has such a similar point of view to those early adopter users. Someone who wants to dive deep into the data, loves that, and as an investor has that experience of his own that he's bringing to the table, right? So it's not coming from, I think some people think product management can be so abstracted away, but actually, we share your problems, right? We feel them too. And so we are
Mhm.
really passionate about solving them. And I think the background of the team is so exciting because we have multiple entrepreneurs on the team, people who founded their own companies, know exactly how hard it is. They've done everything from design to being the CEO to product management, right? So they're bringing all of those experiences here to the table and thinking about so deeply about how they're going to make customers happy and satisfied. And then we have also some people who've joined from larger companies which is, you get to learn how it's done at scale and you can learn so much from that. I really saw that myself at Gemini as we grew from 100 people to 1,000 people. Many processes start to break
That's,
down, right? And
yeah,
you have to
that's
think
true.
bigger and learn, and
Mhm.
really pushes you to be better. And
Mhm.
so we have people with that experience as well. So I just think I really believe in the team completely. And I think having just joined really relatively recently, I feel like this is our year where we're so well positioned to bring out all these products that we're excited to share soon with our customers.
You guys have made a huge, you and the team that work with and lead has really made a big difference, right? So thank you for that. And something that I'd like to draw the listeners' attention to is what you're saying about feedback. It doesn't have to be positive, right? Like we're we're we can take it, right? We want to know it, right?
Absolutely.
And so don't hesitate, right? Maybe be professional about it, right? But no, don't hesitate to point something out, right? It's a creative to the everyone's experience, right? Because really, if you're experiencing it, it's most likely being experienced by another investor. So I would assume that you welcome feedback and want as much as you can get. And I love the idea of the obsessing over the feedback. I think that makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
And so let's talk about ideation and the roadmap and things that you're excited about. And why don't you let us know what's going on over there in the product world and what we can look forward to.
Yeah, well, you talked about our early adopter customers, and those customers are so passionate about ground floor, and I want to roll out the red carpet for those users. And of course, new users can come too, but those users have extensive histories at ground floor. And so I want to give them more tools to improve their experience. So I want to evolve the product experience and the bifurcated account experience we have today to a more premium experience, basically,
Mm,
where you have the ability to get maybe reporting that you wouldn't have access to previously. We have 10 years of data ourselves that we all look at internally, a lot of which I think would be interesting or helpful to our customers in making their decisions. So that's something we foresee. We also foresee the ability of adding new financial products for that group of customers, and for those customers who are really driven by seeing new things and that's really what's exciting to them and helping them. We want to make sure we're giving them those new products that they're going to be able to pick and choose from a large supply of those. So that's a really important part of that initiative as well. And just also the UI UX, right? I
mhm.
think
Yeah.
little things that we're starting to work on are coming together. So we rolled out some new reporting that you mentioned,
Mhm.
but it is not yet consistent across the platform, right? So we want that look and feel and design to feel like one experience and feel elevated compared to a really simple to use product that we want to have be our first time users experience with ground floor. So the way I see it is that you might hear about ground floor today and you want to get started today. It's going to be really simple, easy to use, and we're going to really focus on nailing that. So you download the mobile app. It's going to take you 2 minutes to onboard, and you're going to immediately see what we have to offer and a couple products you can invest in, and you'll be able to get to that moment of seeing a return quickly. For those users who have the longer tenure and really want to pick and choose their investments, right? They need a lot more information to do that. So a simplified experience is not going to meet that user's needs. And so
Hmm.
that's where that premium experience comes in. So we are still figuring out the name. You brought up the Flywheel name. So I don't have the name yet today, but that is something
Can I
I
be at
want
the
to,
meeting? Can I be at the meeting when you come up with the next
yes.
name? That was so interesting to me. I want to be invited.
Absolutely, absolutely. For me, products, I think when you work with a developer, sometimes they often will do the thing that you're trying to get done, right? You're like, hey, make it work like X, and they go and do that. But
Hmm.
customers, obviously that's beneficial, but we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we're going to respond somewhat emotionally to the products we use. So when
Hmm.
you are using a product and it's a frustrating experience and there's glitches, right? Even if the investment returns are great, it's going to feel frustrating. And so when you use a product that's beautiful and
Hmm.
works really well, you're
Hmm.
going to associate that with the feeling of the product. And so one of the things that we hope Groundfloor can provide to our customers is that more financial freedom. That's so important to our users. And we want everyday people to have access to these markets that you can't have access to otherwise.
That's
And
the mission.
so
That's
that's
the
the
mission.
mission. Exactly.
Yeah. It,
Exactly.
it's it's what gets me up early. It does, It really does.
Absolutely.
Not too
Absolutely.
early, after 6, but
Well, I have kids, so I wake up early, but
yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's that piece, right, that I really want to move forward in 2025 as well, along with all these improvements, these really tactical things that are going to help you have more to invest in, have better data. You're going to feel excited about the returns we can offer. Those are all amazing and super necessary, don't get me wrong, but I also want it to feel fun to use, and I want it to feel easy and just be something that inspires you, because at the end of the day, right, like how great is it if we're able to help people have more financial freedom in their lives? I mean, I love that. That's, again, as you said, that's what we wake up for.
It really is. I think that there's going to be a need for a lot of obsessing with those goals, right? And we do, as a executive team, you and I are largely a part of that. We do strive for always looking at what's next and how we can do things better. And there's a lot of effort that goes into doing that. And again, you and your team are doing an amazing job. It's very noticeable, the work that you've done, and it's certainly, I know that you have that roadmap that you're attacking, and I really do look forward to see what's next on the horizon. I do also very much want to thank you for taking the time. I do want you to come back. If you could be a recurring guest on the podcast, that would be amazing. Maybe we can talk about real estate trends. I know that you're a secret real estate junkie. Maybe not even secret. We're welcome to do that too. But again, thank you so much for coming to the Market Trends podcast and helping our listeners and group understand, what you do and what you're looking forward to and what you're working on. And I look forward to the next time that we're able to do this. Thank you, Claire.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciated it. Great conversation, and would love to come back.
Oh,